are here because we have something very important in common. We're here because we all like to share. We want to share thoughts, ideas, knowledge. We share the product of all these things. We call it content. We know how to use technology to share it. We even know how to use the law to share it.
The conference event was filled with an extraordinary diversity of keynotes. Keynotes from all sorts of people who are leaders in this movement, people who will define this movement and make it the success we know it will be.
The Commons is a more accessible, a more efficient, and more productive way of creating value in an alternative way to the market.
It's because people have a license to sample from across the creative landscape that things are reinvented constantly.
And that means that this question of piracy versus business is just a false opposition. Piracy becomes business, business becomes piracy, and I think that's already not a controversial thing to say.
There's so much talk about the internet being this hugely democratizing, beneficial force. But I think at the same time, it's really important to say that if you can't read, the internet's a pretty useless tool.
But people can still work rationally in terms of rational self-interest, and you can have selfish people collaborate because people are putting in less than what they're getting out individually.
So this is why we need strong, vibrant communities who can work together to help make sure that we have spaces where dissenting voices, where minority voices can continue to be heard so that information environments around the world are not too homogeneous.
What we really need is a diverse global network of actors who have a shared vision about what the global problems are and what the global solutions might be, and to try and address these global challenges together.
The excitement of the keynotes doesn't end in the keynote session. The people then go into the labs, which are focused, and people from diverse spaces and different backgrounds and different countries and different fields are able to kind of work together on projects and themes that are relevant to what it is that they do.
We spend a fair deal of our time giving presentations of our works on research on the commons, research on openness and freedom on the internet. Something that to some of you may be boring, but to us was a very rewarding and enriching experience, I believe. And we started today by talking a little bit about common research topics that we would like to pursue, how to form an agenda that is both relevant for research, but also relevant to the policy advising and decision making and so on.
We are taking the audience from television into internet.
We tried to define what is actually open video.
And we tried to talk about what works and what doesn't work. For example, YouTube is appropriate for certain types of projects, but it isn't necessarily a panacea.
The idea is to create a culture of sharing and exchange at one of the most important fields as we see it, which is education.
We wanted to move this year from the idea of access to participation, and of course for people to participate, and particularly for educators to participate, they need incentives.
We went through identifying the problems that publishers, editors, translators and people working at getting information out of the public sector into the commons.
We think it'd be a good idea to have some examples of how people are using the commons to facilitate the use of the commons. Hopefully it will go up sometime in the next year.
What we ended up coming back to repeatedly was just this idea that, well, open business is, well, it's just business, but it's kind of a different way of doing it. So it's more that there's businesses that implement open methodologies, such as collaboration with the customers and transparency and some of the different features that are common between them.
So in the Japanese trucks panel discussion, we conducted 4 panel discussions. One was on education, business, technology and policy. We found out that there was a common topic, how to bridge the big players movements, such as rights and content holders, and the bottom-up movement of lay creators in relation with open contents. We were very, very happy to have shared various approaches and issues and point of views, but also to be able to have shared with the local and global context at the same time during this iSummit. So we now hope that this collaboration will continue in a more fruitful way within Japan and, of course, on a global scale.
I have to say the outstanding thing about the summit is the people.
I was impressed a lot with the ideas that people had and where a lot of the ideas came from. It was a very wide spectrum. So it was quite inspirational, actually.
With your work, keep inspiring us, because we realized that everybody who was actually on the research track is being inspired by the work that everybody else is doing here. So thank you very much for that.
I thought it was a really good opportunity for networking.
The concept of collaborative creativity is as old as sharing stories around the fireplace. What's new is the scale, using a network and the internet and speed.
I think there's a real positive attitude about everybody in the session working together, and it really is just a collective, and that's, I think, what this whole thing is about. It's a collective of people who are very dedicated and have one basic goal in mind, even though we come from different backgrounds, is able to use that together.
The concept of live drawing is commons artwork. What I can do is quite small, but what we can do is great. If you see it from distance, you will find out it's a great artwork. It's made by us.